Hi everyone, welcome to the Master of Data Science Program Facebook Live event. My name is Milad Meimei and I'm the Director of Operations and Student Management for the Master of Data Science Program at the Vancouver campus. And I will also be the moderator for this panel discussion. Over the next hour or so, I will be answering, or we will be answering all the questions you may have about the admissions procedures for the MDS program, the prerequisite requirements, tuition, financial aid, and career options, and a whole bunch more. So we'll be together for the next hour or so. Most of you who are currently watching have already submitted your questions when you registered for the event. If you haven't, you can also submit your questions on our Facebook page in the comments section. Also, just so you know, a few weeks ago we held some other Facebook Live sessions with our students and alumni panel, and in those panel discussions they talked about their experiences as they went through the program and after what they did after they graduated. So these sessions have been recorded and you can find them both on YouTube, on our website, and on our Facebook page. So you can look up those panel discussions as well and listen and watch them in your own time. On our panel today, we have representatives of the Vancouver program, the Master of Data Science Vancouver program, the Master of Data Science in Computational Linguistics, and also the Master of Data Science program at the Okanagan campus in Kelowna. So the first thing I'd like to do is to get our panelists to introduce themselves, and then we'll get right to your questions. So maybe we'll start with Raymond here.
Hello, my name is Raymond Lawrence. I'm an Associate Professor of Computer Science, and I'm the Director of the Master of Data Science program at UBC Okanagan.
Hello, my name is Tiffany Timbers. I'm an instructor in the Department of Statistics. I teach in the Master of Data Science program, and I'm one of the option co-directors for the Vancouver Master of Data Science program.
Hi, I'm Julian Brook. I'm an instructor in the Linguistics department. I'm unofficially the head instructor of the Master of Data Science Computational Linguistics.
Great, thank you very much. Welcome all. Maybe I'll start with this question, and you can all chime in if you want. What are the differences between the three programs?
Who would like to start?
I would say mostly the programs are very similar in the idea that we want to train great data scientists. In terms of the difference between Vancouver and Okanagan, I wouldn't say there's a lot of curriculum differences between those two programs. There is obviously a computational linguistics difference, which Julian will talk about. The only difference between Vancouver and Okanagan is where you are. So in Okanagan, you're in Kelowna. It's a smaller city, smaller university. There's some benefits for that, and obviously some drawbacks as well.
Yeah, I would like just to echo that the curriculum is not identical, but very, very similar between the two programs. So in Vancouver, you will have a larger cohort in addition to a larger city. So our cohort in this current year was around 100 students, and your cohort size was?
It's 35.
Yeah.
So we are also different in terms of the cohort size. We have just over 25 this year, and we might have more like in the order of 40 next year. Of course, we have a fairly significant curriculum difference. Sort of highlight three areas, and one of them is kind of obvious in the sense that there's language right there in the title. So we're focused on language. Language is data, and so we do learn some linguistics, and we also do a lot of sort of what we call natural language processing. A lot of our program, especially the second half of it, even when we'll be learning similar things that you would learn in the Master of Data Science, we'll be doing it with focused on language data. Kind of going along with that idea, sort of two sub differences, which is that we do tend to have a little bit more of a focus on, in one area, that in terms of programming language, we put a little more emphasis on Python, because Python is sort of the core language used for language, doing computational linguistics, and also because it's also very front and center to artificial intelligence. And I would say that's another big difference, is that our program, though we definitely do basic data analysis stuff, we do tend to sort of have more of a focus on doing AI kind of applications. We do a little bit more with deep learning throughout the program. Those are the big things.
Great, thank you. So a question we always get is, how can you do a 10-month, a master's degree in 10 months? So is this really a master's degree that you're getting after you graduate?
Well, it certainly is a master's degree, and One of the ways that we do it in 10 months is that it's a very intensive degree. So we do recommend to the students that you are very committed to the program and you don't have jobs on the side and such like that as you're completing the program, because you will be very busy. So you are in the classroom during the 8 months of courses for 20 hours a week. And then on top of that, you probably have at least 20 hours a week of homework, readings to go along with that. And then during the capstone period, which is the last 2 months of the program, you are expected to be full-time engaged in capstone. So you're working in a collaborative project typically, and you're kind of putting in like full-time work business hours for that project. So that is one way, is that we're very intense, it's very full-time. I'd say the other thing is that the academic team in all 3 programs has done a very selective job of picking kind of what we say is like the best parts of maybe computer science, statistics, and linguistics to efficiently get you up to where you need to be to enter the job market with the skills.
Yeah, I'd just like to follow up on that. You're getting a master's degree at a top 40 institution at UBC, and the curriculum design is what really makes it happen in the 10 months. You really are selective on the skills that you need to know that are going to be employable, and so that allows us to focus on what's important. And it is intense, but you can do it. That's the important thing.
Yeah, and I'm just going to kind of echo on what you said about just continue with the curriculum design. So when these programs were created, all the courses were created from scratch. So we're not pulling in courses from other programs that already exist at the university. So through doing that, we've been able to just really tailor the curriculum for data science.
I mean, we focus very much on, okay, there are real world applications of this. What do you need to know? I mean, I can see also looking at stuff you guys have done over the years in terms of tweaking the program and say, oh, we had a capstone project about this, but we weren't teaching them enough this. Let's add some of this into the program. So we're constantly sort of updating the program to try to make it as relevant as possible to the professional world beyond the program.
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. Let's get into financial aid and tuition. So we always get a lot of questions about scholarships. So what scholarships are available for both domestic and international students?
So at the Okanagan, similar to Vancouver, there's an entrance level scholarship, which it says publicly up to $25,000 for a domestic student or for an international student. And those are awarded at admission time as a competitive process.
I'm going to defer to you to fill out on that.
Yeah, so we have the same scholarships up to $25,000, and I think
we're the same.
Yeah. And the important thing to know is that you don't need to apply for them separately. As you submit your application, you are automatically, we'll review your application with those scholarships in mind. In addition, for financial aid, we also have a bursary program for domestic students. So once you get into the program, and if you have a Canadian or provincial student loan, then you can also apply for a bursary that we will have available. And for the Vancouver program, we also have a MasterCard scholarship, which is MasterCard Foundation Scholarship, which is for students from sub-Saharan Africa. And but unfortunately for this year, that deadline for that scholarship has passed already. So the way it works is that students who are interested in that scholarship, they apply with the MasterCard Foundation. Before this year, the deadline was January 2nd, and then if they get approved by the MasterCard Foundation, then they can apply for the Master of Data Science program in Vancouver. So I hope that answered questions about scholarships and tuition and financial aid. Okay, let's get into application and admissions questions. So let's start with a very general one. What are the admission requirements for the MDS program?
Okay, so we have prerequisite requirements. So you need to have a computer science programming course. You need to have a course, and this has to be like a undergraduate, like an official undergraduate course. So courses like Coursera or other types of MOOCs, at least for the Master of Data Science Vancouver program, is not quite enough. You also need an undergraduate course in probability or statistics, as well as an undergraduate course in calculus or linear algebra.
Yes.
The prerequisites for the Okanagan are exactly the same. You should have a B+ or 76% average
Right.
And also your English level requirements, you'll want to look at the graduate studies requirements. For Okanagan, that's 6.5, I believe, on the IELTS. I think it's 7 for UBC Vancouver.
And 100 for TOEFL.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we have the same basic requirements. I would say that we have, on our first year, because we have sort of a broader audience and we are interested very much in attracting students who are coming from arts or humanities backgrounds. We have in a couple of cases made exceptions when, but usually for just one course and where there was a clear work experience, often plus MOOCs. There's a combination if you have most of the prerequisites, you can convince us that you have the skills that you needed to make it pass, to make it in the program. There is potential there for a little bit of flexibility. I should also say that we have an additional requirement in that we are looking for people who can show that they have a strong interest in language. And there's sort of two ways that this could be manifested. One is in terms of a background in areas such as linguistics or in a particular language study, or for some of our students it's more that they've done some natural language processing and know a bit about that field. So we are always looking for people who have bring something to the table in that sense, because our program focuses on language. We want to make sure that people that come in the door are really interested in language and will be happy focusing their efforts on language data.
Okay. Is there any requirements for work experience?
I would say work experience is great. So when you look at the applications, if you have work experience, that's a positive, but it's not required. So you have other ways to demonstrate that you'll be successful and the program's a good fit. So it's really, to me, it's all about fit in the program. And we want to accept people that we think are going to be successful, but work experience is not required.
Yeah, I would say the same thing for the Master of Data Science Vancouver program. And I would almost estimate that like our current cohort, half of the cohort has significant work experience, whereas the other half has very little to no work experience. So we have quite diverse backgrounds. The folks who apply that don't have work experience do often have things on their curriculum, or their CV, sorry, that have gone above and beyond just having the required degrees and courses. So projects, internships, jobs, personal projects related to that. Co-ops.
Yeah.
So yeah, a strong application has to have something outside the classroom that draws us, I think.
And illustrates a motivation to data.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So the deadlines for, I think, all three programs are January 31st. Is there any benefit to apply early?
Well, we did have a little bit of an early application thing with
Yes.
the idea that we wanted people who, especially if they're worried about visas and people who are very committed to our program and want to be in, we did have an earlier deadline that allowed students to come in a bit, to propose. I wouldn't say there's a huge advantage. I mean, if you want an answer early, there's a potential that will result in it. I wouldn't say that it would. That it's necessarily a strategy to use, because I mean this is our second year, so we've seen the range of applications we get. We will not just because you applied early put you at the top of the list.
That's right.
But if you're a strong applicant and you apply early, you may be hearing from us very soon.
Right, yeah, same with MDS Vancouver. We do rolling applications typically, and so the same sort of thing. If you apply earlier, there's a chance that you might hear back from us earlier.
Yeah, but I always tell students when they ask me this question, it's better to submit a really good application at the deadline rather than a average application earlier. So if just make sure you have the best application possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah, don't rush your application.
Yeah.
Put your best application forward. But if your application's done earlier, I think all programs are trying to get responses earlier because we value your time as students. So if we can get you a response earlier, we will. But just because you apply earlier doesn't necessarily mean your response will come earlier, because there's other factors in play.
Yeah.
That's right. Great. So students also, or applicants also have questions about whether they can apply for 2 programs, 3 programs at the same time, and how that works.
So yes, you can apply for all 3 programs. They are 3 separate admission processes, so you have to be aware of that. You have to do 3 separate applications, 3 separate sets of references. So you kind of want to be strategic if you know which program you want to be in, but there's no downside in the sense that if you apply to all 3 or 1 or 2, it all gets
We
evaluated.
don't just sort of pick, okay, well, you can only,
Yeah.
we don't, yeah, there's nothing that's going on behind the scenes where we're gonna like make you for, okay, well, this applicant has to do this or
Right.
that. So all the applications will be, sort of each reviewed in their own stream. So yeah, I mean, I mean, obviously for our program, we hope that, we don't just want anybody, we want people who have this particular interest to apply to our program. But if you have an interest in CL, but you also have a more general data science interest, I think it's fine to apply to the other
Certainly.
two programs.
One thing I would advise applicants, if they are applying to multiple programs, is that you might want to tailor your personal statement
Mhm.
to the program that you are
Yeah,
applying for.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
it's totally fair to have, a desire to enter two programs and you're not sure at the time of application. That seems like a reasonable and fair thing. But you would still want to explain why you think you are interested in a good fit for the
Yeah,
MDS
absolutely.
Computational Linguistics program and why you think you are also a good fit for the MDS Vancouver Okanagan program.
That's really what a statement of intent has to do. And
Yeah.
if it somehow doesn't quite fit because it happens. And so be careful about that. Make sure you are thinking about the program you're applying to.
I do want to echo, that's very important. Make sure there are 3 separate committees evaluating these applications. So make sure your personal statement and your fit is for that place where you're applying.
Great. Another thing that applicants have to upload to their application is a resume. So we have a question here. What should be the structure of the resume when you apply?
I wouldn't say there's like a exactly perfect or desired structure for the resume, but well organized and clarity. I would really recommend handing it to another person outside of yourself, maybe somebody outside of data science, and make sure that other people can easily read and digest your resume and that it really highlights the key things that you want to point out to us.
Yeah, and in my opinion, it doesn't have to necessarily be targeted to data science or anything. We kind of want to know what
We
other
want to see
things
the
you've
big
done.
picture.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I don't think we expect that it's that your resume is going to be cherry-picked for
Yeah.
the particular program. And
You're not applying for a
and
job.
to be honest, I like reading resumes that have a bit of diversity
Yeah.
in what they're doing and aren't just, seeming like they're completely just focused. I mean,
Yeah.
it's good to have some focus, but it's also good to be to see a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's okay to include an internship that wasn't really that relevant to this or something like that on the
Yeah.
application, of course.
I would say the format of the resume doesn't matter to
Yeah.
me as long as it looks professional, what you would want to go out
Yeah.
for a job.
Yeah.
I find most of the interesting things comes from the resume because that shows what you've done outside class. So it is a very important thing.
Yeah. So I know we talked about this already, but maybe stress this a little bit. What is the number of expected intake for September 2020 in each of the programs?
So Okanagan, target is 35 to 40.
Vancouver is around 100.
Yeah, I think we're in the sort of 40 range this year, but we're not going to artificially increase. We sort of have an upper range of 45. That's absolutely the most that we can have based on the way things are. But I think that it will be in the 40 range, around 40.
Okay, great. So there's a couple of questions coming in that are related to what we've been talking about. So I'm going to take a step back. There's a question about the deadline for the MasterCard scholarship, which has already passed. It was this year, was January 2nd. And then the question about background and experience. How about experience in programming languages or experience in data science or linguistics or something like that? Is that a good thing? Do we care?
I'll comment on programming language. So you need to have, I guess, as I said earlier, a prerequisite of 1 computer programming, and it should be a computer science programming course. The language that comes in doesn't matter. In the MDS Vancouver program, which shares a significant amount of courses with the MDS Computational Linguistics program, we use both the R and Python programming languages. And so if you, say, took your undergraduate programming course in Java or C++ and you've never touched R and Python, perhaps before you come to Vancouver, you might want to do a little bit of practice ahead of time so you hit the ground running. Our programming course assumes that you have that undergraduate prerequisite course so that you know how to write a for loop, you know how to write a function, and we're just going to teach you the R-isms and the Python-isms of the languages that we use so that we can go pretty far and pretty fast in the beginning of the program.
Yeah. So it is very fast. Like
Yeah.
you do kind of start from scratch in some sense. You're learning the piece of language, but if you haven't if you don't know what a loop is, I have seen some applications where sometimes the computer science, in our program case, they're sometimes quite far in the past, and then it might be a good idea to do some makeup work. Take a class, do at least a MOOC or something to get a little bit of practice before you start the program, because it's very intense, and we ramp things up pretty quickly in terms of programming.
That being said, I'm not trying to paint the picture that you need an entire degree in computer science to be successful in the program. So you need to have some elementary understanding of programming, but beyond that, we have people from very diverse backgrounds complete the program successfully. We've had somebody with a PhD in fine arts and piano. We have people from business backgrounds, engineering backgrounds, biology backgrounds, economics, and so pairing those things together it has been successful for many students in our program.
Yeah, so you don't have to have a computer science degree or undergraduate.
You don't have to have, so our program, you don't have to have a linguistics degree.
There you go.
I mean, it's a great thing to bring to the program in terms of, I say, the interest in language, and there will be parts of the program where this will help you. We do some syntax, we do some semantics, but it's not like as long as you can show some interest and passion for language, and impress us in other ways, then it's absolutely possible to do the computational linguistics degree without either a CS or a linguistics.
Or statistics,
Or statistics.
Or statistics,
Okay. So back to the resume again. Is there a restriction on the length of the resume?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
I don't either. If it's 5 pages, that's too long.
Yeah.
Most of them are about 2 pages, 2
Yeah.
or 3. I don't remember if there is a limit though on the system.
Yeah.
one page, if it's, I saw one page can be a little bit too tight maybe, but I think do what comes natural, put everything there, but don't go to 5 pages.
Okay. Next page. Grades. So does having a good grade percentage, GPA or something like that in undergrad or in your background matter when we look at applications?
Sure. Maybe we should each comment, I guess, because it's 3 separate admissions process. We might
3
all approach
separate.
this separately. So why don't you go?
So grades matter because, in my opinion, grades show prior effort. And so one of the things, since it's an intensive program, we want to make sure that you are going to be able to succeed in an intensive program. And so higher grades are normally somewhat of an indicator for that. And then on the minimum side, our graduate studies has a minimum of 76%. Now, in very exceptional cases, we've went below that for some of the reasons that we've mentioned before. But most of the time, you have to be above that amount.
Yeah, and I would say in particular in the MDS Vancouver program, we would also agree that grades do matter because they are indicative that you've had success academically previously. And we place, I think, maybe greater emphasis on the prereq course grades because those are the ones we're building on in the program, as well as if we see a trajectory of improvement. That also matters to us too. So I myself, for example, my first couple of years of my undergraduate degree were not my best, but there's this transition time, and then you learn how to learn and function in a university setting. And so if you had a trajectory like that, I think many people who have gone on to success, and we see that, and we like to see that.
I've also seen a few applications where there was a period of low grades, and it's also a very good thing to address that on your application.
Absolutely.
Let us know what happened. I mean, we know that things happen, and you can have a bad semester or a bad year, but just don't try to, but you can't really, we see the transcripts, you can't really sweep it under the rug, so just be honest about it, tell us what happened, and most of the time, that's not going to be like a deal breaker. A couple of bad grades isn't going to.
We look at the whole picture.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and you can do that on your letter of intent.
Yes.
If you have.
And there's
a
an
bad year,
extra
you can-
section
There's actually
too,
sections
that
specific
says like,
where
is
you
there
can say
anything?
talk about this stuff, in one of the questions.
And the application has 3 questions saying how do you fulfill the programming, how you fill the stats. That's a good chance to highlight the courses you've done and the marks you've done.
And if possible, link to the course syllabi, if you can share those with us. If the course title isn't like clearly what we're mapping onto or asking for.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you accept those that have a PhD into the MDS program? Or
Yes,
other
definitely.
masters?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any sort of qualification. You could have a master's or a PhD already, as long as it looks like there's a fit for the program and it makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. In Master Vancouver, or Master Data Science Vancouver, we've had someone with a PhD in finance and piano, I think somebody with a PhD, I think, in physics
Yeah.
previously.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I mean, as long as it's, I mean, as long as you don't get the, I mean, as long as you can make the argument that this is the right program for you. I say, if you, maybe you've had a PhD where, that led you in this direction, that you really felt you needed the more technical data science skills, that's great. I mean, I think that's a perfect fit.
Yeah.
Okay. When will students receive an offer if they meet admissions requirements?
I guess I'm here, I'll answer. That's a hard one to say because it depends when your application has come in, when it gets reviewed, and the
Yeah.
quality of the application. So I guess honestly, some applications will get offers really quickly depending on the quality. Other ones, because it's a competitive entrance, it's not necessarily when you apply, it's when we determine whatever the cohort looks like at this point. And it's not easy, you can't generalize because we're trying to be inclusive and diverse and have a whole bunch of different factors that go into these decisions.
Yeah. And then we also have a wait list, so if
Yeah.
you end up on the wait list, we'll communicate that with you, and then the whole timeline is then different as well.
Yeah.
Rest assured, we want to tell you as soon as possible as well, but there's enough applications that it can be, it's a process, and we can't always get it, back to you, turn around in a week. So
Yeah.
it takes some months sometimes.
Yeah.
And I don't think you should think just because you haven't got a reply in the first month that necessarily that there's
Yeah.
something going on.
Great. A couple questions here about gaps between when they graduated and then applying to the program. Maybe gaps in their resumes. So can you talk a little bit about that? Maybe specifically, somebody is asking here, I've heard that applicants will not be considered if they have more than a 5-year gap in education. They've been working in IT for the last 8 years.
I would say that maybe that might be the case for other programs, I'm not sure, but I wouldn't say that's the case for our program. We value work experience, and so that would be something that you would highlight maybe in your statement of interest and would be significant on your resume, this 5 years of work experience and not being in school.
Yeah.
That's completely fine. If you have a gap in both school and work experience, again, that's something you might want to explain, and we know life happens, so you can tell us that.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the fact that we're a professional master's degree versus research-based?
Sure.
Sure. So the difference between a professional and research-based is a research-based, you have a supervisor, you're doing a thesis, you're fairly guided on the process that you're following. The professional masters, the goal is to have specific training, and in this case in data science. It's a course-based, there is not that sort of unknown, like a research-based thesis that you're doing. And it's very directed in that way. It is all planned for you. You know what you need to achieve. You just have to follow along with the curriculum and go through the 10-month process.
You get like a small flavor of research like during the capstone and a bit more freedom and flexibility, but that's over a shorter period of time, so that's in your 2 month. And it's also, which I think is a really great thing about at least our professional programs, is that that's also a collaborative project. So you get to work on your teamwork skills, you get to work on how do you effectively collaborate in the data science professional setting, and that's, I think, a real benefit.
Great. Switch gears a little bit and talk about references. So what kind of what makes a good reference? Should they be professors versus professionals, supervisors, those kind of things?
I think it's good to have a reference from your supervisor. I mean, sometimes it's hard because I know sometimes there are students applying who really are 10 years out of university, and it's not easy to. I would say that I like to see a mix, when possible, a mix of both academic and professional. It is a professional program, but it's in academia, so it's nice to see people to see evidence that you can sort of succeed in both places, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you are, again, like so far out of your past education because you've been working for 10 years and such, and it's, very difficult to get a good academic reference, that is understandable for such cases. However, so you can go and get more professional references for that. However, what I would try and say is to try and get those professional references to be people, if possible, that are kind of above you, as opposed to your peers. Because
probably.
those ones, the ones from current and past supervisors at work, will give us a little bit of a different perspective than somebody who is a friend or works alongside you.
Yeah, it's a bit of a red flag when it's your buddy that you
Yeah.
just work together with on a project. I mean, yeah.
Whether it's a professional or an academic reference, what's important is it paints a picture of who you are
Yes.
and why this program would be good for you.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you've been out of school for a long time, if those professional references are the best, then use the professional references.
Yeah.
But if you have good academic references that show the kind of person you are, that's who you should be using. So really what you want those references to do is convey who you are so the committee understands it.
That is really the
Make a
way that we
decision.
get to see who you are in terms of the way you work and the way, yeah, it's actually a really important part of the application. So yeah, it isn't just about sort of, I would sort of, yeah, again, sort of, rather than picking like, say, the head of your department who just knows you a little tiny bit, but is the head of your department, therefore, it's actually better to have someone it's good to have someone in a supervisory position, but it's also good to have someone who can really talk about you as a person. Yeah.
There's a technical questions, or a couple of technical questions about the application system that doesn't allow for Gmail or Hotmail addresses, and they have to be institutional email addresses. So questions about how do they submit references if their supervisors or their references don't have only have a Gmail address or a Hotmail address or something like that. And I can answer that.
Okay, that would be great. That's
So we will allow mailed-in references for MDS Vancouver anyways. So if there's no way that your supervisor or your professor or whatever has institutional email address, you can ask them to mail us a reference letter, and our mailing address is on our website. So I don't know if
That's the exact same rule for UBC Okanagan, and that's actually not an MDS rule, that's a graduate studies
Yes,
rule.
yeah.
Graduate studies wants to make sure that the references are genuine, so that's the rule. So we don't have any control over that, but you can submit by paper,
Yeah.
mail.
I think it's the same for us.
Great. Okay. So a lot of questions here that have been answered already. So I'm going to go to the next page. It's a good question because we want to stress this. I come from a non-traditional background like nutrition or healthcare, political science. Will I be able to apply for the MDS program? We've answered it already, but we can stress it. Yeah.
I think it's important to emphasize that when the MDS was designed, it was designed for people who did not have a computer science and statistics degree. That was the whole vision when this program was put in place. All the curriculum has been designed that way. It is intensive, but it starts right from the very beginning. So all you need is those basic prerequisites, and you can build to become a data scientist through this program, and that's what it was the goal.
Absolutely, and I'd say most of our students are
That's who they
not
are.
do not have a computer science degree previously, or do not have a statistics degree previously. So, and we've had, like almost 200 people through now, and so there have been many people who have completed the program successfully without a technical background.
Yeah. Another question. Sorry. Did you?
No, go ahead. That's
Okay.
exactly, they said it all.
Okay. Another question is about if we do interviews as part of the admissions process.
I did one last year, but only in very rare cases. I mean, if there's something specific no. But generally, no. I mean, generally we don't, right?
Yeah, there's no interviews for our admission process.
Okay. Question here about prerequisites, the 3 or 4 prerequisite courses that we have. Can I still apply for the program if I'm currently taking a prerequisite course that is required for admissions?
Yes, yes, you can.
Yeah. Yes. How about, and I had this question yesterday actually from a potential applicant, if they're taking more than one prerequisite course before at the time that they're applying?
That wouldn't stop anything from my perspective, but if you're gonna get an admission offer, it might be conditional,
Yeah.
potentially.
Yeah.
The thing I like about that is it shows that you're interested, but you can appreciate from our perspective, it's hard to determine if you'll have those prerequisites fulfilled by the time those decisions are being made.
And how well you will do.
And also, that's the thing, because so we weight the prerequisite courses a little bit more, and without knowing what the grade is,
Yeah.
it puts a big question mark, and it makes us
Yeah.
be a little bit more careful.
That being said, if you have like an exceptional
Yeah, of
transcript
course.
otherwise, and you
Yeah.
have 2 other prerequisites that
Yeah.
have
One, right.
exceptional marks,
Yeah.
then our conditional offer might be easier to make. in
The
those
bottom line
cases.
is I never say no to any applicants, you should apply, but then it's always a matter of fit. And then things that don't quite fit right now, you should explain as best as you can why you
Yeah.
wanna do it.
Exactly, okay. So I think we're hearing that, this is a question, there is no differences in prerequisite requirements between Vancouver, Okanagan, and computational linguistics.
That is correct.
Specific to CL, what are some of the computational linguistics courses that a person can do which will make him or her eligible for CL specialization?
Honestly, any computational linguistics, I mean, most universities have maybe 1 or 2. There's a few that have more than that because they're major research areas they have major research interests in computational linguistics. But a lot of universities have 1, and it's great if you've taken that. It tells us that you know what you're getting into, and if you did well in the course, especially, it's a great thing to have there. I mean, but usually there is just a core computational linguistics course. Of course, if you're at a university which has more sort of individual courses that split it up a little bit, great, and but you should look at, often in the computer science department, there's many undergraduate programs, certainly grad programs have a computational linguistics course or a natural language processing course, and either of those on your application is nice for us to see. You're definitely, this is something you know what you're doing, and it's something you know that you're interested in.
Great. And I know we've answered this already, but I'll ask it again. How do you show that you've taken the academic equivalent of the prerequisites on your application?
There's those actual questions as part of the application. It says, what was your programming course? What was your stats course? What was your mathematics course? Fill it in and be nice to the people reviewing it. Show on your transcript the actual number and your grade, and it just makes everything, and if you can link back to the syllabus, even better.
Yeah.
But at least link it back to your transcript,
Yeah.
which is one of the things that's being uploaded, so it can be verified.
Make sure we don't have to look through trying to guess what the prerequisite is.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Great. Again, we've answered this already, but to stress it a little bit more, will you accept online courses as my prerequisite courses?
We prefer at Okanagan that you do have the prerequisite. We have accepted people who did not have the prerequisite, who might have done a MOOC or an online course, but once again, that becomes one of those exceptional cases where you're showing interest and you have some sort of other qualities that made that application stand out.
Yeah. Typically at MDS Vancouver, we don't. Our application pool has become quite large, and so we just haven't been able to accept people who don't have a formal undergraduate course in the prerequisites. There are some formal online undergraduate versions that you can take, but it has to be an official undergraduate course.
Yeah, so I always tell potential applicants that you have to show us your grade. So if an online MOOC or they usually just say certificate of completion or something, so we don't know if you've actually completed it, how much you've completed it.
It's also hard for us to calibrate to the quality control and the I guess the hoops that you have to go through to create a MOOC are far less than to create an official university course. And so we have a better idea of what you know if it's an official university course versus an online course.
It's easier for us to assess. Yeah.
The one example that I have seen, which was fairly rare, but there's a person who never had a programming course but was working in the IT industry for 5 years. So sometimes it is possible. It's pretty rare that those sort of situations happen, but there are some cases.
So if it's all possible, try to get
You want the prerequisites.
Try to get the prerequisites, and if you don't, you're going to have to stand out in some other way, in some fairly significant way. Yeah.
Great. A question from international student: do I need a visa to attend the program?
I think weeks.
I think so, yeah.
Yes, you do.
Yes, for sure. So you cannot come to Canada if you don't have a
Well, I mean, I guess unless you, no, I mean, you should get a student visa, even if you're coming,
study permit.
Yeah.
study permit from wherever you're coming from.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, and with a study permit, I can talk about this a little bit more. With a study permit, you're allowed to work on or off campus, which we actually don't recommend that you do while you're in the program.
Yeah.
But yeah, you need to get a study permit, and depending on the country you're applying from, it might take a few weeks to a few months. So the earlier you apply, the better. And you need to you can only get a study permit if you have an offer from us. So you wait for your offer. If you get an offer, you take that and apply for your study permit. Questions about housing. Is it hard or easy to get housing? Maybe we'll start with Okanagan and then go to Vancouver.
The easier one.
So the Okanagan is, I would say, easier than Vancouver. There is a lot of options around campus. The one thing we're stressing to our applicants is because we're small, we got a special deal with residents that we can push you forward to get residents on campus. So it could be literally 5-minute walk, not even 2-minute walk from your room to where classes are in the Okanagan. So that is one benefit of being in a smaller place, that you have an easier time finding housing, whether it's off campus or on residence.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to
Yeah.
defer to you, Millie,
Yeah.
to comment
Me
about
too.
housing in
Yeah,
Vancouver.
so housing at UBC, I know that at least out of our 100 students this year, I know that maybe 10 or 15 have found on-campus housing. The key is to apply early for on-campus housing. Even with a conditional offer, if you get a conditional offer from us, you can go and apply for housing, and then when you remove the condition, your housing is, the condition of housing is also removed. And if you don't remove the condition, then you can't obviously come and live on campus. So it is possible to find on-campus housing at UBC Vancouver. It's maybe a little bit more difficult than Okanagan, a little bit more competitive. How about off-campus housing? Do you have any experience?
There's a lot of places around the university in Kelowna, but I think both places it is a competitive place. So
Yeah.
I guess my recommendation for Okanagan especially, you're coming for 10 months. If you can get on residence on UBC, it's so much easier because especially as an international student, finding a place is one more thing that you have to add to your list.
Yeah.
It's definitely possible.
Yeah.
Most of our people do that,
Yeah.
but on campus is also a great option.
What I can say for off-campus for UBC Vancouver, I had experience living here off-campus as a student, is that we have a great transit system in Vancouver.
That's true.
And so most of our students actually do live off-campus, but don't report great difficulties at getting to campus.
The students show up in class.
Yes.
At 9 a.m. so they can,
Yeah.
they make it there.
Yeah, we've got sky trains and buses.
We had a
and-
strike, there was a strike scare, but I think it's passed and we're all good.
Yeah.
Transit system is pretty good.
And about cost for housing, obviously Vancouver, not obviously, but Vancouver is a little bit more expensive than Okanagan, I would say, Kelowna.
Yeah, I don't know exact amounts, but
Yeah.
especially, it's hard to say because most students will share a place with people, and so
Yeah.
it can be fairly reasonable.
Yeah. Also, for international students, going back to international students, post-grad work permits. I don't know if you know anything, or should I address that?
You can address
Okay,
that.
good. So after you graduate, and if you want to stay in Canada or in Vancouver or anywhere in Canada, you have to get a work permit. It's called a postgraduate work permit. Because the rules state that only licensed immigration consultants can talk about the rules for applying for postgrad work permits. We can't really discuss that here. All I can say is that in the past, 100% of our students who have applied for postgrad work permits have received postgrad work permits. And they have received postgrad work permits that are longer than the program length, which is 10 months, so 2 or 3 years. But again, this is based on past experience. What happens in the future, we never knew. Rules may change. Your individual situation may be different. Your application may be good or bad, and that may affect if you get a postgrad work permit. Okay, language requirements. So what are the language requirements for international students to get into the program? We talked about it again, but let's talk about it a little bit more.
So if you went to an English-speaking university, you've already satisfied the requirements. Otherwise, you need an IELTS or a TOEFL score, and they are slightly different between the campuses. I think it's 6.5 for IELTS and 90 for TOEFL for Okanagan. And Vancouver is
700, I think, yeah.
And you can have less than 6.5 for Vancouver, 6.5 in the individual, I can't remember what it's called, the individual sections. Of
I think there's, for the TOEFL, there's like, it's like 22, 23 or something like that. Maybe it's even a little bit higher.
25, I think.
For the individual ones.
the exact rules are on the website.
Yeah, they're on the website. We're not the right people to.
Yeah.
I mean, we deal with them, but we don't.
We look on the website as well for
Exactly.
Yeah,
I have it
we're
open.
reviewing
I have it open.
Yeah, exactly. Good. So let's talk a little bit about careers. Do you foster relationships with industry partners in order to maximize hiring success of your graduates?
Absolutely. I'd say like the biggest way, there's two really large ways that I've witnessed the programs do this. So one is through the capstone program, or the capstone projects, which is the last course that you take in the program. And so that's the last 2 months of your program, and all the programs, leaderships engage with industry in the surrounding areas to get real world problems that the students will work on. And we expect those partners to be engaged with the project. So at least in the MDS Vancouver capstone projects, you would be meeting with your industry or government or not-for-profit partner on a generally weekly basis. So you get connections there. And in some cases during the capstone projects, students are actually even working on site in some of those cases. So capstone is one great way. The other great way is the MDS alumni network. It's very strong. And so we have an MDS alumni Slack that all of our students will join when they become alumni, I think even before they become alumni. So they're able to network and engage with our alumni who are many, I'd say like 80 or 90% of them are working in data science related jobs in industry or not-for-profit or government right now. And the alumni are very engaged. They come back and they give talks to our students in our programs, they attend our networking events, and they are very responsive on the alumni Slack when new students are asking about companies, asking about jobs, asking about technology. So I'd say through those two ways that we're very connected.
And then there's all the people, we have
Yeah.
fairly regular industry talks and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yes.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, we invite at least 10 to 15 employers that might not be alumni, may or may not be alumni, to come and talk to our students about industry trends, careers in data science. Maybe they're recruiting and they want to meet the students. So we have a lot of connections with industry.
Should we talk a little about capstone? How like we have so many capstone projects that we can't. I mean, in some sense, it's good, and we're making lots of connections with even people who end up. We have so many capstones that we can't actually do them all for all our students. But then we're still trying to have people come in, and it's a great opportunity, even if you don't work with someone on a capstone, because you can still. There's still lots of opportunities to meet people in industry.
Yeah. And through these connections, we frequently get sent job postings by local and remote industries to share with our students, and we share them through our MDS alumni Slack channel.
Yes. And I mean, UBC is a big university, so there's also like central career services. They organize career fairs. Computer science department organizes a tech career fair at the end of January every year. So, and then there's a lot of information sessions where employers come and talk to not just our data science students, but all the students at UBC. So there's a lot of opportunity for you to connect with employers, and there's probably more than you have time for.
Well, I think it's important to emphasize that's one of the benefits of being in person with a cohort-based model. For the alumni, for the capstone, for the networking. That's something you don't get when you're just on an online program. So that's one of the major benefits that you have. But there's also a career advisor attached to the program, which does a whole bunch of events on workshops, on networking, resume preparation. Having you prepared to go out in the job market is really important to the program.
It's really the measure of our success. I mean, that's the first thing. You guys had 100% acceptance, placement in
yeah.
the first year, right? So I mean, that's what you sell, because that is the measure of the success. This is a professional program. We want to get you a job.
Yeah. Talk a little bit more about capstone. What's the difference between capstone and an internship, for example?
Okay. So the emphasis in capstone is on your learning experience. And so we have generated a really great process for bringing in real-world projects from industry, not-for-profit, government that are solvable or at least tractable to make progress in a 2-month period. And the emphasis really is on your learning and doing things that will help set you up for your first job as a data scientist. So as opposed to, say, like a co-op position where the industry partner or your work placement place dictates what you're going to be doing. In the capstone project, it's your UBC mentor and the project scope that has already been vetted by the UBC academic team that dictates what you're going to be working on, and it has to be tied into what your degree has been training you for.
The key for the capstone, like you said, is a learning experience, and it's guided by the UBC faculty in addition to the partner.
Yeah.
And most internships are not group activities. That's the other big thing. Now you're working together, taking all the knowledge you learned in the previous 8 months and applying it in problems as teams.
Yeah.
Your goal for that is to both to learn and then hopefully get some references after you're done from that capstone partner.
Or a job.
Or a job, or something like that.
And I think that collaboration aspect is really key. Data science is a collaborative field. Almost nobody works alone as a data scientist. If you're not working with other data scientists, you're working with other people
who
in your
create
in your,
the data, use the data, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And so we place huge emphasis on collaboration in the program. Throughout, we have project courses in the MDS Vancouver program, as well as this capstone project. And we want you to practice. It's not easy work. It doesn't come naturally to most people to work well collaboratively in teams. So we want to give you lots of practice doing that in our low stakes environment, so that when you go out in the job, you're going to hit the ground running in a teamwork environment.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the capstone, and what does the employer or the capstone partner get at the end of the capstone project?
Reports, data analyzed, it really depends on what that project looked like. But if that project was defined well, the employer said what they're generally looking for at a high level, and hopefully the student team has delivered something either to answer their question or did something with the data that added value.
Yeah.
Depends on the project.
It really depends.
But that's something that's set up when the project begins. We make sure that it isn't just, it's very concrete. It's one of the questions on our form for people who apply. What is the data product? And is it a report?
Yeah.
Is it a system maybe? Is it a what? Is it a dashboard? Something like that, yeah.
Okay. What sort of jobs or industries do students get into after finishing MDS?
It's the same as every data science program, I guess, in the sense that they're general data scientists. They could go to any type of industry, government, nonprofit, any sort of commercial industry. It's generalist training, so you're not replacing, let's say, a big data analyst or a programmer like that. But our grads from last year have went all over the place, in Canada, international, whether it's health companies, big banks, all the way to small startups. There's so many startups who have to analyze data in the Kelowna and the BC region as well.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing about MDS Vancouver alum. They are working in big companies like Amazon and Microsoft, small startups, transit organizations.
Government, not-for-profit, everywhere.
All over the place. So it's really great. I think data is everywhere nowadays. And so our data scientists can work wherever there is data.
And it doesn't really, the answer isn't that much different for us. I mean, we are more specialized, obviously, but in practical terms, and you look at this at our capstones now, there's actually a lot of companies out there of all different types who have data, have language data that they want processed. I mean, we've got a couple of very interesting legal capstones. there's mineral geologies, people who want to just get sentiment about their companies. There's an interesting diverse. I'm sort of surprised how many companies there are that have actually they've had this data that they've maybe been sitting on and they want to do something with it now. And this is a great opportunity for them to get started with it. And many of them are saying, and yeah, we'd be happy to hire someone to work on this permanent, because they've got, everyone's building up huge data sources and they need people to handle it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. What do you know about average salaries for graduates of the MDS programs?
So I'm forgetting the numbers off the top of my head from our last survey, Milad.
Yeah, so we do 2 surveys, one 6 months after graduation
Yeah.
and one year after graduation, and we asked the graduates a whole bunch of questions, including
Yeah.
salaries, and we found that 6 months after graduations, all the graduates who found employment, most of them were working between, around the 80,000 as starting salaries, and then the 1 year after, actually most of them moved to the $100,000 a year or more. So that's kind of what the trend is, I think.
We haven't
Difference-
surveyed our first cohort, that's actually coming up this month, so
Right.
we'll have more statistics, but your salary really depends where you are and the skills you're bringing to it and the sort of company you have, but I think I've seen quite a range.
It also depends on what kind of company you end up in, and also your interests. I mean, there are some nonprofit opportunities that might be very engaging, that maybe won't pay as well, or you could just or you can get a job with a big company that gives you a six-figure salary right off the top. And it sort of has, there's a lot of factors where you want to live afterwards and things
I think
like
the important thing is it gives you opportunities, and you've got to figure out what the right opportunity is for you, and the
Yeah.
right company and the right situation.
Yeah, great. We only have a couple more minutes left, so I was wondering if any of you have any final thoughts you wanted to give before we sign off. And if not, that's okay as well.
Yeah. I guess I would just say it's a really exciting time to become a data scientist. There's a lot of, there's a lot of growth in the area, in industry, in government, in not-for-profit, even at the universities and education. Companies that haven't traditionally been data companies are learning that they can use data in interesting ways to inform how to improve sales, how to improve operations. And so I think, it's a really exciting time for this field.
I think I want to agree, there's a lot of great opportunities in data science. This program was really designed to allow for retraining as well. So even if you didn't think this was your field but now discovered it's something that's interesting to you, those are applications we really love to see. And so we want to be inclusive and diverse. So if you're not sure that you fit, I still would encourage you to apply and make that argument why you fit and why this might be interesting to you, because we really want to see a diverse set of applications.
Yeah, I would agree with both of those points. That first of all, it's an exciting time, even within the slightly smaller, narrow range of computational linguistics, natural language processing. It's been a huge last few years where language applications have suddenly kind of come to the fore, and all of a sudden, we have our Alexi in our homes, and suddenly it sort of feels like it's a time that, oh wow, we can really solve these kinds of problems related to language. And so I think it's a really great time if you're interested, if you really have an interest in language. And let's say diverse. We like all kinds of applications, just as long as you can sort of, show that you have this interest and I think and we can hopefully help you turn it into give you some technical skills you didn't have before and prepare you to get the job you love.
Great. Thank you all very much. It's been very informative, I think, hopefully for everyone out there. And just to reinforce the fact that our deadline for this coming cohort, September 2020, is January 31st. The referee deadline is the week after that, so I think it's February 7th. So if you decide last minute that you still want to apply, you have to reach out to your references. They have an extra week to submit their references, but we'll hope to get a lot of applications. And if you're interested in listening to our discussion again, everything will be recorded in the next week or so, or is being recorded right now and will be posted in the next week or so on our website and Facebook and YouTube. So thank you very much for joining us, and I hope you found this very informative.
Thank you.